workshop is everything but the performance. So basically what that means is like kind of the kitchen sink. I'm going to throw everything at it of everything we do to prepare for a performance. In this, I'm going to specifically focus on pole performances, although this can also apply to other performances as well, as far as like aerialists or dancing or just like general gigging and performing. I have like a little PowerPoint that I've created, so I'll be sharing that with you. And yeah, if you guys have specific questions as we go throughout, please feel free to ask anything that comes up. So I'm gonna go on to my present slide. Again, as I said, it's going to be everything covering from preparing for work, booking work, wrapping gigs, and we're going to focus on film, television, virtual, because that's a new thing, and then also live performance and stage. So, yeah, we'll get into it. So a little bit about me if you don't know who I am. I started pole dancing in 2009 and I started performing in 2011. In this period between, I was performing in like student showcases and little shows within my own community. And then I kind of branched out beyond that because I love performing the most. I actually have an background as a performer in musical theater and singing. That's kind of how I actually started performing in the first place. Like I just love it. I have a history of that. My mother, she raised me going to the theater all the time. And that was my first exposure, like as a very young child. And she was very interested in that. So that kind of first introduced me to it. And then I grew up and I went to school and I was like, okay, now you have to be an adult and you have to get a normal job. So I kind of then went into pursuing work based on my education, which was in communications. And then I really missed performing, and I kind of found pole dancing as a way to make me be a performer again. So some of my bio highlights, I've performed with recently with J-Lo at the Super Bowl, also with Guns N' Roses in Las Vegas, at the Alexander Wang New York Fashion Week, and at venues in New York. I'm based out of New York, The Box, Drum, and House of Yes, which will probably mean nothing to you if you're not in New York. And then I've also worked on film and television. I'm a SAG performer for the past 10 years. So I have worked as a lead choreographer in a recent Stars series called Hightown that had some pole dancing in it. And then also done smaller shoots like W Magazine shoot with Victoria's Secret's choreographer Jermaine Brown. And I was also in Telemundo's Que Noche, which is kind of like their nightlife, like a Tonight Show. And then I've also done a lot of film and television, Law and Order, and a bunch of different shows like Elementary and different films. And then I've also been pole coach to a lot of actresses and performers. So these are some of the gigs I've done over the years. This is me with the crew of dancers. This is me for everywhere from backstage to on stage to in between takes. It's a lot of fun and so many different diverse ways that you can perform as a for a second. Just check in. All right. So you guys can hear me when I'm presenting, right? Just give me a thumbs up or say yes because I don't know, as I'm sharing the screen back and forth, it all sounds good. Okay, great. So again, the cool thing about pole dancing performances is that there's literally so many options and diverse ways that you can perform. So I'm just going to run through some of the different types of performances that I've done, everywhere from live events, from ambient to choreographed. I've done a backup dancer as like a concert. I've also done a lot of film and television shoots, which usually involve being in a strip club setting, which we will specifically discuss and talk about as well later on. And then I've also performed at like a bat mitzvah. So really, there's like a whole great cross section of different options that you have as a performer. Okay, I'm going to go back to my little present screen. First thing we're going to talk about is like preparing for the gig. I'm not going to talk about the actual performance. That's why I call everything but the performance. And we're just going to talk about the preparation process and how to book work, how to find it, and then how to manage once you do have that job. So important things to know as a performer: luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. It is a fine line of you try, and then you are successful and you find something. The amount of jobs I have not gotten and the list of things I have not gotten is exponentially longer than the list of accomplishments that I have. I have had lots of disappointments along the way. This is kind of a cliche, and a lot of people who do have success say this, but the is an iceberg, you know, like the tip of the iceberg is what you see, and underneath is what is part of the actual whole. And that is the thing. Process is the thing. Process is the job. Process is your job as a performer. Process involves training and prepping, building choreography, working on your, you know, strengths, trying to build up your weaknesses. Do you love the process? And if your answer is yes, you enjoy the process, that's good, because that's going to be most of the work as a performer. Your job again is going to be a lot of that. The time when you're on stage is a blink of the eye, and it is going to be gone so quickly. So it's really important that you do love the whole of everything. And then practice technique until it becomes organic. This is something I learned as a singer, as an actor, and it's something that is very important for the performing process. Your body has an intuition of truth. So what that means is once you get on stage, sometimes you can get in a zone, they call it, where you're not really thinking straight. You know, you're kind of lost. You're in this like exhilarated state. I'm sure that a lot of you have felt this, even performing in small venues or for friends. So that when you have it in your body, you can let your body do the work and trust your body. So I really recommend to enjoy the process of training and dancing, and that should be something that's the most important. And only put what you feel the most comfortable with on stage. So don't put tricks in there that you just learned, anything that's kind of fresh content. Eventually what's going to happen is like you're going to end up putting that content in that is the most comfortable, so you can really enjoy the experience. The audience is not going to know, and they're not going to care about the most advanced tricks. And also advanced tricks vary for everybody. So really try to enjoy the process and the journey of everything. So the next part we're going to talk about is prepping for your gig. The best way to do that is to showcase your skills. So you want to have, I would say, 4 separate things. You want some photos of yourself. You want some sort of video or a reel, and then a bio or a resume. Resume is not really going to be something that most performers are going to need. Maybe if you go on some kind of like theatrical audition, but really like you want to have that bio. That's something that you're probably going to have to provide anyway at some point if you are performing as part of a show. And then a website or a social media handle. Now, the most important thing to note with all these is they don't need to be professional. They don't need to be expensive. And they just need to be clear and show a clean and accurate representation of your skill set. So I'm going to go through one by one. First, photos. You want something of your face. You can see in the photo to the left, it's kind of like a direct head-on version of my face. And that's because you want to show what you look like from your face. And that's kind of called in actor lingo would be a typical headshot. Then next, you want a photo of you on your apparatus. It could be something clean and simple, beautiful, but something that you can see what you're doing. Again, these don't need to be professional. What I have here are versions of professional photos, but they're things that I've accumulated over the years. I did not start with professional photos. So again, you don't need to spend a lot of money, especially because now we have the option. I'm going to go back to I'm talking, and I can watch you guys, see them if you're having any questions. They don't need to be professional. You can use your iPhone and just get good lighting. I'm backlit here, so this is a bad example. You can see the light shining behind me. You don't want to be backlit. This is the quietest room I have in my house because I live in New York. But you want something where you can see your face and what you look like. And again, it can be done with an iPhone, but you want to just make sure that it's something that people can see what you can do, because how are they going to book you if they can't see it? Performance for the video, it can be a performance from a showcase or even you in the studio getting some studio time in. And again, it can be video, but you want it to be clear. I've judged a lot of like online submissions over the years, and I've seen a lot of online virtual shows recently because that's something that's really picking up now because of COVID. And I notice a lot of people don't get very simple things correct. Lighting and angle. You want to, again, be seen and try to light up the room where the light is coming on you and not behind you. Like I'm doing an example right now because that kind of blows up my face. Um, and then the bio and resume, it could be just like highlights of what you've done. It could be where you train, uh, any kind of, you could put anything in there of like a student showcase or a competition that you've done so that people get an experience and they get kind of an idea of what your background is. And then you also want to check for grammar mistakes. That's a very important thing. You'll show your professionalism from the very beginning, from the way that you present your materials, from little minor grammatical errors. Or any little mistakes like that will show how professional you are. And then the last one is the website. As I mentioned, again, you don't need to have a professional website. It could be just your social media handle. A good test is Google yourself. Can you Google yourself and find yourself? And what do you find? Sometimes I find embarrassing photos that I'm like, oh, I have to take that down on Facebook. I forgot that was there. Especially if you have like a unique name as I do. I'm very easy to find. So know that you want to be easy to find. You want people to be able to find you. And they want, when they find you, to know that you perform. If they Google you and something comes up like, it's okay. Like obviously things will come up when you're Googled, but I'm saying like how you present yourself on your social media. If your Instagram does not look like you want to perform, then people won't assume. Why would they even know that you want to do that? So I would really try to present yourself as much as possible, showing that you want to perform and you want to be booked. Be easy to find and have people know, like, dress for the job you want. They say showcase what you want. And again, it's not always going to be necessarily like professional performances from the very beginning. I'm just going to read through some of the comment box. Yeah, competitions are a great way to get that exposure and stage experience. Um, and that's definitely when you're being judged, you really want to have something you're like, I feel good in. You don't want to like have that feeling of uneasiness when you're on the stage. And then how often do you update your photos? Oh, that's good. I would say update things about once a year or whenever your look changes. Like if you cut your hair, very drastic change, or if your skills increase exponentially. And then the regular resume, it is slightly different. I kind of do a hybrid of resumes, and actually, let me see if I can. I'm just going to search in my I have several resumes on file because I also I'm an actor, so I do a lot of performance work. So I'm actually just going to show you my I do actually like performances on stage, and then I do like pole performances or just as an actor. So I kind of have both. Sorry, I didn't plan upon this, but of course, like, why would I not show this to you? This is important. All right, so I'm going to share that quickly before we go on to the next little section. It is a little bit different than a normal resume. And again, this is usually not something you're going to need, but it is a good way to establish like, oh, okay, look what I've done, and like kind of like organize if you ever were to need it. Because the thing is, like, when there are gigs available, you want to like blink your eye and like then you need to submit. You don't want to wait. The longer you wait, the more likely somebody else got that job. So you want to be quick and you want to get in as fast as you can. So at the top, I kind of just label myself actor, aerialist. I put aerial because it's more, I can have more options as a performer. But primarily, yes, I do pole when I perform. I also do stunting. I've done stunt training. The more option, whatever you have that is in your toolkit, offer that, because you never know. Like, I just did an audition recently that I did not book for a show that's happening this week. And they wanted somebody who could roller skate and pole dance. I can roller skate. Not that great, but I can do it. And then I can pole dance. So I put that both in there. But anything you have, like, you never know when they're going to need a roller skating pole dancer. And you're be like, I'm your girl. Like, I got you. I'm also SAG-AFTRA. I put my representation on management and agency. And then you want to put basics of height, weight, hair color. This is all things that they're going to use either for sizing or, yes, typecasting. You will be typecasted. And as a performer in mostly film and television, unfortunately, they're now we're now expanding, but it is something where they can explicitly ask for what they want. And film, television, I separate by film, theater and live shows, and voiceover, choreography work, and then my training at the bottom. So you see how it's kind of in like three columns. It's like the job, what the title was. It is the role that I played, and then it's the director. Sometimes I put the choreographer. So just to kind of separate in different categories. And then at the bottom, I put my training as far as acting training, vocal training, stunt training, dance training, and then any special skills at the bottom. If you Google resume, acting resume, or you can kind of find that. Sorry, I'm just reading. Where do you send this? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we're gonna get into that. Yeah, I'll move along here about where to find jobs and then how to submit jobs. So we're gonna go into. So the first thing is prepping for the job. Know that, like I was saying, as a performer, there's so many different options. You can do live stage. It could be a pre-record thing, like film and television show. It could be everything from a corporate event to like a commercial, like Nike did a commercial using a pole dancer that I auditioned for that I did not book. Again, I will keep bringing up all the things that I have not done as well as the things that I have done. And then private events. The over here in the left-hand screen is a little blurry, but I was the ice queen pole dancing at a bat mitzvah, which was a lot of fun. So you see, like, there's a big range of options. Know that there are options of ambient and choreographed. So maybe you will be choreographing, or maybe you will have a choreographer, or maybe it's just going to be ambient sets, which is very often it's going to be kind of a mixture of like freestyling and just kind of finding whatever you like to do personally. But again, it varies so much. So know the different options even before you go into submit. Like, consider that and think about, what would I like to do, and know what your limits are. This is so important as a performer. Very much in the beginning, I definitely found myself in situations where I was taken advantage of. People don't understand pole all the time, and they also mainstream performance areas as far as like film, television. They don't understand us as pole dancers. Whereas when you do a pole competition, they know, like, you have to clean the pole with rubbing alcohol, or you need to have, like, you can't pole dance for 20 minutes straight. There are certain basic ideas that people are not aware of. So know your limits. Know where your hard limits are. And then another thing to consider is, are you comfortable with nudity? If you are doing film and television, more often than not, if you're pole dancing, you're going to be in a strip club. Now, in strip clubs, there's nudity. So know that that's a realistic component of it. It doesn't automatically discredit you if you are comfortable with that. If you're not, it is really about your own personal comfort levels. Again, it's just kind of consider that. And sometimes you won't know until you're in a situation. But I will get into that later as far as like being on film and television and nudity and what that involves. Okay, so I'm going to go on. So finding opportunities. So this is first where to find jobs. The first thing I will say is network and building your personal and community contacts. So that might mean anything from people at your own local studio who you know perform, anybody you know in your network who might host events. Just kind of build that network. And again, that's not so much traditional networking, just as like really putting it out there that you are interested in that. And there are so many times where I see people who are like, oh, I want to perform. I really would love to do that. But they don't showcase that on their profile. And again, it can be small performances, like just you putting together a show with your local pole community. It can be just showcasing a more performance-based content on your page, but just really sharing that and letting people know that. Researching, visiting any local venues or shows, observe the performers, see what they're like. A lot of people and event producers that I talk to, they say, oh, this person submitted, they haven't even seen my show. That is a no-no, I would say. One, because how do you know you want to perform somewhere unless you really get a sense of the vibe? Maybe you decide you don't want to perform at a venue. Going there, but really recommend going there. And if it's a virtual show, go and see it, and so you can really get an idea about where you fit. And then you can also, again, make connections that way and networking. I wanted to perform at the House of Yes, which is a venue in New York. So I went there, and then I ended up seeing a performer I knew, and I spoke directly with the owner who also hires and books all the talent. She introduced me. So those natural, organic connections are really important, and also to get a sense of the performance itself. The next point is taking classes. Get in the room with choreographers and producers. A lot of pole dancers might be booking performances, and you might not even know it. We had Johanna Sapaki, who worked with J-Lo in Hustlers. She came to Body and Pole, and she was in the room and she taught a class. So I was like, I'm going to get in the room with her because she's booking talent. So I wanted to be seen. And it was almost like an audition, a way to be seen in front of her. I actually auditioned for Hustlers as a principal role. I did not book it. I also went to an open call for even background talent, and they booked about, I would say, maybe about 50 dancers, mix of actors, pole dancers, and strippers to cast in it. And I did not book that either. So I was in the room with her, and I didn't get anything in that movie. And I was based in New York. I was in New York, didn't get anything. A few months later, an opportunity came up for the Super Bowl, and I got the Super Bowl. So, you might have one thing that you have your eye on and you want, and it doesn't come to fruition, but there might be something down the line. So make connections, get in front of producers, any choreographers, research choreographers if you don't know, like see what big works are out there, what kind of a pole show that you really like Pole Show LA, who produces that? Leanne Riley. Okay, get to know her. See, kind of doing that like a back end and just being interested and being a participant. You can also talk to performers, anybody who performs, small scale, large scale. You can search local castings. Backstage is more of like stage performances, and Actors Access is more film and television. Sorry, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. And then finally, next I would say research any local agencies who specialize in circus and specialty acts. That's something you'll find in larger cities, but there are definitely a lot of venues that do that. Live events are kind of having a hard time right now, but there are options out there still, again, for virtual things or just building this up to down the line. And then finally, curate your social media so the world sees you as a performer, as I was saying before. Okay, so now how do you get an opportunity? This is some great tips that I had acting coaches tell me over the years and casting directors, specifically for acting, but it applies to pole performances as well. Internal arrogance, external modesty. So know your skills, know your talent, know what makes you unique and you amazing. And everybody has their own skill and talent. Don't try to compare yourself. Be like, I am the shit and I know I'm the shit and have that in you. But externally, modesty and showing that modesty. That's the balance, and that will really help people feel comfortable with you. This is another tip they gave me. Be on time, be good, be you, be gone. As a performer, you kind of gotta just do the work, get to the work, and then be on. If you've ever been in the back end of producing shows, it can be very time consuming and difficult to deal with a lot of moving parts. So the more you can make it easier on the producers, the easier you're going to be to work with. And when you're easy to work with, people are going to want to keep working with you. No pre-apologies. Make people feel comfortable with you. Positivity connects. That is something I find a lot of, unfortunately, women have a trouble with, of us having to apologize and say, I'm sorry. Don't come in with that. Don't say, I'm new. I haven't performed before. Oh, I haven't done this, or whatever you feel in your head that might be doubting. It's okay to feel self-doubt. I'm not saying that. But externally, you want people to feel comfortable. Like, I got this. You booked the right person. So have that confidence in yourself, and also know it's okay to feel a little bit lost. Even the most seasoned performers feel that way. Having a personal connection helps. People like to work with performers they know. That is true. Definitely. The biggest jobs that I have gotten are jobs that I knew someone at, and it's not necessarily always something that's going to definitely get you a job. It's definitely something like I've lost jobs because other people had better connections with other people, and it's just kind of the way a lot of industries work. And performing is no different. People, it's not just like, oh, I like this person. It is also about knowing who that person is and knowing what it's like to work with them. So know that that's going to be a reality. And in the beginning, it will be kind of just like trying to get in, trying to be seen, trying to showcase yourself. But it does definitely become easier once you have more connections, and then once you can build on that. All right. So you're not always staring at my slides or my face. And then not so yeah, oh, this is a very good one. This is the last one. Not who you know, but who knows you. So that's a saying like, oh, it's who you know, it's who you know, it's who you know. That's not really true. It's who knows you. So do the research, find out who's booking, find out what kind of jobs you want to be involved in, and then make sure that those people know who you are. And that might be showcasing yourself personally on your own social media. That might be getting out there and performing wherever you can, showcasing that, and showcasing that you like to perform, you want to perform. So once you do get a gig, that can be kind of, it could be a listing that you find, it could be a posting on Instagram, it could be you hear about an audition from a friend. I've had everything from official castings that I've submitted through website, like anybody could. I've been to live audition calls. I went to a live call for Madonna once. Did not get that. That was Okay, I just turned it off and back on again.
There we go.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Sorry. Okay, bye. Hello. Okay, cool. I don't know where I left off. I'm going to continue going. I'm so sorry. I'll just keep checking back in on the panel, and just let me know if you lose me again. But I'm going to just continue going. I was just talking about different ways to get jobs, anywhere from, again, submitting. Yeah, so submitting to, you might be, you find it on, I'll give some examples of ways that I booked work. Finding people posting on like Facebook or Instagram, like, oh, they're looking for pole dancers. Hearing personally about people who are looking to book work. I've had agents find work for me. I've had agencies like event producers help me find work. I've also been on casting posting. So like things like Backstage, Actors Access, those are places where you can find like film, theater, different types of jobs. And then there's a lot of background jobs for pole dancers. If they're doing like a strip club scene, usually they'll be looking for pole dancers on casting networks. And that'll usually be in New York, LA, major cities. But they're kind of branching out. They're also in like Atlanta and Chicago now. All right. So I'm just going to go back to my little move on. And I'll just keep checking back in on when I'm on the presenter screen, I can't sense. So I'll just keep going back and forth to make sure I don't lose you guys. So the next part is, once you do have an audition or some sort of opportunity, there's some basics of auditioning. Walk into the room like you belong there. Do it like you can't do it wrong. We all feel doubt. Even the most seasoned performers have self-consciousness. So the more you can just have a sense like you own whatever you do, you're going to make people feel comfortable. And it's also going to help people know that they can work with you. You want to know your strengths, embrace your uniqueness. Don't let mistakes or rejection throw you. They're going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. They're going to happen in the audition. They're going to happen in the performance. You're going to get rejected. You're not going to get things. Like, that's part of a performer's job. And again, it's all about luck. And the more opportunities you have, the more luck is something that I find a lot when I've gotten so many auditions, but the amount of auditions I've gotten and the amount of jobs I've gotten is like, so again, you only kind of see that side of the result of the process, and you don't see the work behind it. But just know that when you're putting yourself out there and you're not getting things, that it is okay. I have a question from the monitor. Are there any red flags that you've seen with questionable castings, gigs, auditions? Yes, definitely in my earlier days, I went on Craigslist to get jobs because I just wanted to perform, and I was like out there wherever I could be. And not to say that that Craigslist is a bad place to get jobs, but it is, there can be questionable jobs in there. So that is a very good point. And I will talk about that once we book jobs, things that you should make sure that to look for and to watch for so you're safe. Because what we do is obviously puts us in a position of vulnerability. Number one, we are doing acrobatic tricks on an apparatus, so our safety is at risk. We are also vulnerable as far as being exposed. If you're in film and television, usually you're going to be portraying a stripper. So at the very least, you'll be scantily clad. It might involve nudity, and you'll be in a different vulnerable position. So I've definitely been in positions before where I felt uneasy. And as someone who is a more novice performer, I felt I couldn't speak up for myself. So I want to empower you that when you do move on and move forward in these situations, that you can speak up for yourself. Oh, an estimate of yes versus no. I would say 1 out of 10 things I got. Maybe, not even that. But as far as like, I've submitted for so many things that I haven't even heard back from. But then I've also been in those opportunities where you get in the room and you get seen by a casting director, and then they just say no. So yeah, it is like, I'm telling you, like, if I can't, I was gonna like try to list everything that got rejected from, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. But there's a lot. The list is very long. Okay, going on to you guys so we get everything in. So this is the next part is working the job. or the gig. So things that, again, this is a great segue into red flags. Once you book a job, again, we are in a vulnerable position as pole performers, safety wise and exposure, like literally our bodies are exposed, even if we're not doing nudity. So once you book the job, it's important to know the details of the job that you're being hired for. What does it involve? How much time? How many days? Are you doing any rehearsals leading up to the process? How many rehearsals? Where are those rehearsals going to take place? Are they going to provide a venue? Are you rehearsing? What are you rehearsing? Is it something that's going to be an ambient performance where you're just kind of like go-going or dancing or freestyling? Or is it going to be choreographed? What kind of music is going to be playing? Are you going to provide the music? What is the rate? That is very important. That's something that new performers definitely have difficulty navigating that we will talk about. But as far as rate, I've done everywhere from free to getting paid SAG rates, which is usually about on a principal rate, it's about $1,000 a day. But the rate can vary, and the rate is it depends on what you're doing, who you're doing. A charity performance for a friend, or a local organization, or your pole studio. Are you doing a private event for somebody and they're like, oh, you don't have to get paid? There's a threshold. When you're doing any kind of gig in like a private event, usually they're going to want you to do sets. Now, a lot of places don't understand that we can't pole dance for 15, 20 minutes straight. But they're going to want you to do that. When we did Alexander Wang, the sets were 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off for about 3 to 4 hours. That was a position where we definitely were put in a position of uncomfortability and vulnerability. They didn't understand that you can't really do that. So you kind of have to measure and safeguard for yourself. Maybe your dancing just turns into a little body wave, but you can't dance pole for probably more than about 5 minutes all out, I would say, safely. So educate people, the producers, if they're not sure about that. Let them know that you need that break. The rate, again, it really depends on so many factors. I've done everywhere from free to making SAG principal rates would be again $1,000 a day. But it depends on like the length of time. It depends on where you're doing it. There's a lot of factors involved. So I would say talk to performers in your local region who've done similar work, because you don't want to undercut the industry. If you're working for free or for a very low rate, what that does is it affects the industry as a whole. So I would get education in whatever the local performance rates are in your industry and whoever is, kind of working professionally. Moving on, where will the event take place or the performance? To the right here, you can see they kind of installed this pole on the day, and I had to inspect it. And you have to know the pole itself. I would always know your equipment as an aerialist, so what is an unsafe pole rigged like, because the person who's rigging the pole is probably somebody who has not done that before. If it's in a more general commercial setting or not done it as much as you have. So know your equipment, know what kind of pole they're using. Is it a branded pole or is it just like a street pole, which, when we did Guns N' Roses, like legit, they went to Home Depot and they got it's like a street pole with like an unfinished, it was really, really hard to dance on. And my legs were completely like torn apart. I actually have a picture of that, but I didn't have it in this presentation. But we went to them afterwards. We danced one night on it and we were like, we can't do this. So then they got a bunch of X poles in and they fixed the problem. But again, it's involving that safety. Know what your apparatus is, know where it takes place, and know your apparatus. Know what an unsafe pole looks like. It has to be level. It has to be if it's above a certain height, it really should be drilled into the ceiling or it's into the floor. I've seen poles fall out of the ceiling. There was like a 20-foot pole with Magnus in a performance that I was doing about a year or two ago. And the pole in the middle of his performance, he did a little spin and the whole pole went out. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he shared it on his page. It's crazy. He's very strong. He was able to catch it. But that's something that you need to know. Your safety is so important. Know if there's going to be any effects. Is there going to be lights splashing? Is there going to be any effects like fog? That is going to also affect the grip of the pole and what you can be able to do. Hair, makeup. Are you going to be doing your makeup? Will that be provided? The dressing room. Also knowing your costume. Are they providing that? Do they know what a proper pole costume should look like? And then obviously, as far as like gripping and safety wise for what tricks you're going to be doing, that's big. And that's something that most general costume designers are not going to be aware of. And then performance time, knowing what time you're performing and knowing your call time. So we'll continue on with staying safe. Create boundaries. Your safety is always number one. You have to communicate that. If you're not comfortable with nudity, don't have that be your boundary and know that is your boundary. And don't let anyone persuade you or talk you into something you're not comfortable with. Don't get on a pole that's not safe. Always test your equipment. So that is the first most important thing, and communicate those boundaries so that they're respected, they're established, and that they're communicated. But then the next point, it will be that flexibility is going to be necessary part of the process. To know that when you are performing in any setting, a creative setting, there's other people's opinions involved. There's a if it's a live show, there's an event producer. When we did, J Lo's performance for the Super Bowl, that was the most extreme version I've ever seen of different like creative ideas coming together. When I booked that and when we were rehearsing, we at a moment were told that we weren't going to be in the show anymore. That the pole was cut, that pole dancing couldn't be in it. So we were like, okay, we're not in it. And then we got back in it. They changed our costumes. They were going to have four poles. They were going to have doubles pole. They wanted us to do stripper pole. Then it was sporty pole. Like it was like boom, 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 and it constantly was moving around. So if you have hard boundaries set of like, I will do this, I won't do this, I must do this. If you know I need to test my pole before I use it, doesn't matter what changes. That's your hard boundary. But you also need to be flexible. If I were to say, well, we were supposed to do this, why are you changing it? Nobody's going to want to work with somebody who's not flexible like that. You want to know that it's going to change all the time. And you kind of just got to roll with things. And the more you have your safe boundaries set, then the more you can be okay to kind of flux and be flexible with the changes that will naturally occur. Now we're going to talk specifically about TV film. If you're working in TV film, you're usually going to work under SAG-AFTRA, which is union, or you'll be working as non-union. Now, there are certain protections that you have as a union performer that you will not have as a non-union performer. If you are working in major film and television, I do recommend, if it's a major film set, to try to get a waiver or the SAG waiver for the day, which means you're not union and you're not a union member, but you're working as a union for the day. So what that means is, even though you have not paid dues and you're not an official union member, you have all the protections of that union member for the day. This is a problem I saw mostly when we're on a set with unfortunately, with any sort of strip club scene or nudity. Number one, they don't always understand pole, so they'll ask you to do things that are not going to be able to be possible. And then there's not always a respect of the boundaries as far as nudity goes. So the first thing I would say is know the rules of the union. You can do that by, if you are booking any kind of work like that, I would immediately Google a recent, you could say background rules, background contract. It'll let you know what the current rules are. And there are so many protections that you have as a union member. Again, even if you're working for the day, you are guaranteed certain breaks. You are paid extra for smoke and wet pay. There's even hazard pay. You're paid for the clothing you bring. You are paid nighttime premium. Usually if you're doing like a strip club scene, there will be an elevated rate for that. If there's nudity, there will be an elevated rate for that. And know the rules of the nudity. Because if you're comfortable with nudity, that is completely, that's your prerogative. If you are not, same goes. So know that you need to be notified in advance of any nudity or any sex acts that you would be replicating or simulating. It needs to be communicated and notified in advance. You can't get to set and they're like, you're naked, you're topless, and they're like, no, I want full nudity. It needs to be established, and you actually need to sign a waiver if you're working as union again for the day. And honestly, like I even if I was working as non-union, if there was nudity involved, I would make sure I would follow SAG rules, or I would request that that would be followed. Maybe you won't get the rate, but you should get protections, some basic protections. If you're not notified, you can refuse the work, and you'll still be paid either at whatever your full rate of pay was. So they can't come in and say one thing and then another thing happens. The set is closed. There can't be like peeping toms on the set. It's only crucial people who need to be on the set. And there's no still photography. Sometimes people will have their phones out and they'll be taking pictures. You're in a vulnerable state. Again, you're pole dancing, which should be a stunt, which is a whole separate thing. I'm trying to advocate for pole dancers working in film and television, that we are considered stunt performers and not just dancers or dance doubles or extras in background, because what we're doing is definitely a stunt. And then you can withdraw your consent at any time. So even if you do agree to do something and you don't feel comfortable on the day, you don't have to do it. As you know, it might feel different. Thinking like imagining a scenario and saying, I feel comfortable with that. And then getting there and realizing you are not comfortable. You have that right. I definitely have been in situations where my comfort level was not 100%, and I don't want anybody else in a vulnerable position to not advocate and stick up for themselves. Again, this involves going back to knowing your boundaries, knowing your hard, clear, set boundaries, what you're comfortable with, and then knowing you have to be flexible about certain things. Like you might want to do an invert and they'll tell you, no, just do a spin or just do a body wave. Because a lot of times pole dancers will be like, oh, I'm going to do all my tricks. But when you go to a strip club, first of all, it's in a movie. So they just want to see a little movement in the background usually. You don't want to distract from what's happening in the scene unless it's on you, the camera's on you. But usually you're more ambience, you're in the background. It's not really about the center of attention and focus. So they might be like, I just want to see a little dancey swaying movement. I've been given that note before. You want to throw all the big tricks out there, but that's not always something that you can do. That's flexible. That's a difference of okay, taking direction, creative direction, listening to the direction, and being flexible and easygoing and going with the process. But you being nude on set, like, and you having a discomfort with that, or you working take after take and not having a break, not being provided water, that's not okay. So there are certain boundaries. Knowing those boundaries and making sure they're clear is going to help you, and it's also just going to help the process go over smoother. They also don't usually provide things like rubbing alcohol. I bring a spray bottle with me when I go to set because they don't even know that. They also put the principal actress in lotion head to toe, and if you pull, like you can't do lotion and pull; they do not go together. So just knowing that sometimes you have to advocate for yourself, and sometimes you have to be flexible and kind of be going with the process. Reviewing some of these questions, do you usually provide your own costume? I always have an option, but they usually will provide the costume. If you're in film, television, or like for J-Lo's Super Bowl performance, they gave us a costume. For Guns N' Roses, they specifically wanted us to wear a costume. Usually those costumes are going to involve changes because they're going to give you one thing and you're like, well, I can't do a jade split in that, or I can't do this and that. And they don't really realize that like we need skin to grip the pole. So that is something that you'll usually have to work with them and kind of be like, okay, how can I get the effect of this scene or of the show? How can we capture that? But how can I really safely do my work? The process of securing the waiver, usually you'll have that at booking. They booked a lot of dancers and strippers, which is great because they should pool from that resource first for hustlers, but they did not let them know of the proper protections. So basically they will usually let you know, like, you have a waiver, you're getting that. They can refuse that. They don't have to give you a waiver, but I would try to get the waiver if you can, because it's a specific kind of work that involves, like I said, it involves extreme, like a specific talent and skill. And it also involves a vulnerable position of either scantily clad or nudity. And again, I'm focusing a lot on that because usually if you're in film and television and you're pole dancing, you will be in a strip club scene. Yeah. So Oh, music videos are almost the worst offenders because I actually don't do those because the pay is very, very low and there's no protections. They're all non-union mostly. So they mostly will pay like just for the exposure of it. And if you really want to do it and have there's an artist you like, again, I'm not against doing work where the pay is not very high, but usually they'll always be non-union in music videos. And they also won't have a realistic awareness of like what pole involves and breaks, and you want to do all those safety measures and checking. Just going back in everything. So that's the film television. Again, I recommend bringing everything you need, hoping that they provide things like rubbing alcohol and a costume. But if you need something, bring it because I would rather have it and be responsible for bringing it, even though they totally should provide it. But I would rather just bring it and have it than not. And again, going back to only put things you feel 100% confident in. Sometimes in the moment we get excited and we're like, I want to do this trick, or like the adrenaline's kicking in and you think you can do it. Really, really be safe about what you're putting in. One, for safety, of course, but also two, just for like general, like looking good. If you really put stuff in you feel confident in, then you're going to just look better doing it. Eventually, we ended up doing kind of a mixture of freestyle and choreography for Super Bowl. Very simple movement ended up being in the final product. We did so many complicated variations and it ended up being like jade split and freestyle. Also, run moves in your costume. Always know that because a lot of times we'll have the costume and like, it'll work for that. And you'll put it on and you'll be like, oh, no, it doesn't work for this, it doesn't work for that. So definitely run at least on a test pole, or, if you can, if you're in your costume, sometimes you're in your costume and then they literally will take you to set right away and you'll be shooting. Warm up a little bit, do something, try something so you get a little feel for it for safety. Music, sometimes you can select that and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just gonna be whatever's playing. Sometimes for set, they won't have any music playing. So know your music in that, know what to expect. Are you gonna have music? Are you not gonna have music? And then one of my hard rules is I definitely always make sure that I test my apparatus. That is one of my boundaries. And again, I said to establish those, everyone will have different levels of what's comfortable for them, but definitely that is one thing I think that is the most important for safety, always testing that and knowing the equipment you're using. And then performers insurance is this is a specialty insurance agency. You can Google them. There's different ones, but this is one of the most popular for aerialists and circus specialty acts. That is to protect you from if you were to damage the something in the performance, or if somebody you kicked a performer while you were wearing shoes. So it's protect you from any kind of legal action in that way. It's not to protect you if you were to be injured. So just know that, but that is a good thing to have. And a lot of bigger jobs will require you to have insurance before you even step foot on a gig. And then finally, taking care of your body and managing injuries. Performers and aerialists, no, be very protective of your body. That it's the most important thing. That is, your body is your instrument and your tool. So sometimes we get excited of like getting a big job and we want to train and work so hard. I actually for looks like my internet kind of it's showing red or yellow, but I hope you guys can still hear me. I'm just gonna wrap up, almost done here. Okay, great. Sorry. I'm like all distractions. I don't want you guys to lose me again. Okay, so what I was saying is oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought. Um Safety, I can go back to my presentation. Maybe it'll refresh my memory. Injuries. Oh, I had a big injury at the end of the Super Bowl, right before we were about to go on. I literally couldn't move my head like side to side. This is me moving. I had a huge spasm in my neck. Uh, and I almost thought I couldn't do it and I had to drop out. And that was the most important. That was the moment where it didn't matter. It didn't matter that it was the Super Bowl. It didn't matter that it was J Lo. It was like literally my dream to be on a stage like that with someone like her. And I just was like, my body is more important. And I didn't take enough care. Even after like 10 years of performing, I just kind of got swept away in the process. And we were training like 12 hours every day. And I was in a city, by myself, that I was not familiar with. And I was just so invested in the process and I overtrained, and anyone can make that mistake. So take the precautions. That might mean trying to find balancing exercises, Pilates, taking time to rest and recover, not going too hard when you're in your, training sessions. Like just really be kind to yourself and know that your body is irreplaceable. So don't let anything compromise the safety of that. Right. And then working, I'll go a little quickly through these. These are the last slides. On the day of the performance, rest, eat well, stay hydrated, get into the zone, whatever that means for you. It might mean to meditate and be calm. It might mean to hype yourself up and listen to music that inspires you. It might mean to just review your routine, whatever makes you feel ready and prepared. Pack your bag. Some of the things that I love to pack that I always put in my bag: warm, cozy clothes. Never can have enough of those. Snacks, water. You don't know if that's always going to be provided. It totally should, but not always definite. Flip flops, because we walk around barefoot or don't want to always wear your heels sometimes. Something easy to slip on and off. Rubbing alcohol, grip aids, anything you need for warming up for your body, anything for hair, makeup touches, and your costume or a backup costume is good too. Always be on time, be respectful, show people you're professional, that they can trust you. Test your apparatus. Again, know the test, static and spin. Also, know if you're going to be on spin or static. Sometimes the pole can only be on spin or it can only be on static. So adjust your performance accordingly. Take enough time to warm up. And fight or flight mode, I always get this and I always get nervous when I perform, but embrace that. And then finally, trust your body. Be grateful for your body. Again, this is a gift that we have as a performer, and like your body is the most important thing. And then finally, when you wrap up a job, know that you're going to have that post-performance blues. Sometimes you're going to have that high energy, and then it's going to be done and gone and over. And that's okay. Know that's going to shift. Stay inspired with different ways of expression. You can write, you can paint, you can do things, sensual things like cooking or different creative ventures, circus arts or singing, acting. Like there are different forms of expression that can help you reintroduce your love back to pole when it gets kind of stagnant. And then finally, take a break. Take a complete break off if you need it. Just kind of get away from it. Get a massage, take a spa day, and always take care of yourself and your body. Thank you so much. My IG is down here. Please let me know. But I am so happy that you're able to join me today. I'm sorry for the little technical difficulties we had. But please let me know if you have any like specific questions, and I'm happy again, even after today, to continue and reach out and have the conversation. But thanks so much for joining. Thank you. It was fun. I love sharing these tips. And again, I am happy if you have personal, specific questions. If there's a job booking that you see that you're like, I'm not sure about this, or a specific question about a gig, I'm always happy to share knowledge. Thank you.